The intervention video, an introduction to peer tutoring. What is peer tutoring? Peer tutoring includes a range of approaches in which learners work in pairs or small groups to provide each other with explicit teaching support. One type is fixed role tutoring. This is cross-ability tutoring in which one learner, who is often older, takes a tutoring role and is paired with a tutee or tutees who are often younger. The second example is reciprocal role tutoring. In this case, learners alternate between the role of a tutor or tutee, and this is often in the same year group. So is peer tutoring effective? This graph is taken from 2013 from Professor Rob Coe at Durham University when he talked through improving education, a triumph of hope over experience. Back in 2013, the Education Endowment Foundation Teaching and Learning Toolkit had just been published. And in here, you can see the cost of interventions versus their potential impact. One of the things that you can see consistently from the evidence is that peer tutoring is a low cost and potentially high impact intervention, which makes this highly promising for schools. Are schools using peer tutoring as a targeted academic intervention? In 2013, the Sit and Trust did a research project, and in this survey it found that only 1 in 100 teachers said that they would use peer tutoring interventions in their school. And this is despite the EEF Teaching and Learning Toolkit highlighting this as a highly promising approach. In 2020, TeacherTapp did a survey of 6,478 teachers, and 4% of primary and 12% of secondary said that after the COVID restrictions would be restricted and been removed, then they would potentially consider this as an approach for them to use. In the EEF Pupil Premium Review, 90% of schools use the EEF Teaching and Learning Toolkit to justify their Pupil Premium strategy statement. So what worked? We did a Northeast Pupil Premium Strategy Review. And from 524 primary schools, we found that only 2% of the schools were still highlighting peer tutoring as a strategy that they would use in the next 3 years. So over the last 10 years, even though the evidence has been consistently strong, schools have struggled to engage with peer tutoring as a strategy. And we think one of the reasons that what worked for that is because potentially the implementation issues for implementing an intervention such as this. But what does the evidence still say now? So if you go onto the EEF Teaching and Learning Toolkit and you search for peer tutoring, you will see that this is still a very low cost and potentially high impact intervention, and it is based on extensive evidence. There's slightly higher impact, 7+ months of secondary age pupils than primary age pupils, which is 5 months. Peer tutoring has a similar average in impact for maths and literacy and can be effective across the curriculum. One interesting finding from the research evidence is that low retaining pupils tend to benefit more at 6 months than high retaining pupils. And in cross-age tutoring, it is more effective when tutors and tutees are not matched by attainment. In same-age tutoring, this may also be the case, but it's a less consistent finding. So let's have a listen to Professor Steve Higgins. Steve developed the Teaching and Learning Toolkit and is also co-founder of What Worked Education, just talking about the additional benefits for peer tutoring.
There are a number of benefits from peer tutoring for students. So if you look, for example, at cross-age peer tutoring, where you have an older student tutoring a younger student, people worry that the older student isn't going to be learning anything. But actually the evidence suggests that they're likely to learn as much, if not more, than the student that they're tutoring. And that's partly because in order to teach it, you've got to think about how you present the idea, you've got to understand the task or the problem that you're teaching, and it develops your metacognitive awareness of problems of that kind or reading issues of that kind.
That was Steve just talking through the benefits to the tutors as well as the tutees. So let's move on to the purpose of the model. At What Worked, we've been testing peer tutoring for a number of years, and one of the first versions that we basically tested with schools is for providing the resources with strategies. And this was for schools to basically just implement with their Year 5 and Year 3 students. But one thing that we have found is that across different schools, they use different approaches to solving maths problems. So this model that we're testing at the moment is designed to provide structured mathematical practice for Year 3 pupils through support from your Year 5 peer tutors. The programme combines consistent tutoring routines with the flexibility for schools to use your own established approaches to mathematical teaching. So why schools use their own worked examples? Schools use different approaches, representations, and mathematical models when teaching fractions or other topics. For example, a school may use bar models, fraction models, number lines, pictorial representations, or concrete manipulatives. Therefore, the programme is being developed to intentionally designed so that schools can embed their own methods within the tutoring sessions. This is to ensure pupils experience consistent mathematical language and representation across lessons. Peer tutors reinforce methods directly taught by the class teacher. Schools retain autonomy over curriculum implementation. Tutors develop confidence because they're using familiar approaches. The programme becomes more scalable and usable across different schools. The focus remains on mathematical understanding rather than reproducing one fixed method. So the role of the teacher is really important in this programme. So before the tutoring programme begins, the Year 5 teacher models key examples using the school's preferred approach with their Year 5 peer tutors. So during tutor preparation, Year 5 peer tutors complete the teacher model example section of the tutor manual by recording the worked example, any key vocabulary, important steps, and then diagrams and representations that are often used in class. This ensures that the tutoring sessions reinforce classroom teaching rather than introduce alternative methods. The structure of each of the 20-minute peer tutoring sessions follows this format. It's 1 to review, so it's 2 to 3 minutes where tutors revisit prior knowledge and key vocabulary. 2, the teacher model recall. Tutors revisit and explain the teacher model example using the school's agreed approach. Step 3, they have guided practice between 8 and 10 minutes where tutors support Year 3 pupils to complete structured practice questions. And then it finishes off with a reflection and explanation. So pupils explain their thinking and then reflect on their confidence for that particular skill. So that's the end of the peer tutor guidance. The next thing to move on to is the implementation overview video.